right, testing, 1, 2, 3. If this thing is still working, then for the first time in exactly 7 months, Props and Hops is back. And as those of you watching this on YouTube, Twitter, or Spotify can probably tell by my best attempt at dressing like Rick Wild Thing Vaughn, we're back because baseball season is here, and it wouldn't feel that way without an annual tradition. The 6th MLB Predictions podcast in the 6-year history of this show, and the 21st consecutive predictions exchange overall with dear friend and emerging candidate for Rookie of the Year when it comes to fatherhood, Conor Reilly. Conor, welcome back to Props and Hops.
Matt, it's so good to be back. Thank you so much, as always, for having me. 21 years going. We are getting so old, but it's still my favorite time of the year. My favorite thing to do each year is coming on this podcast and talking shop with you. Makes you feel young again, right back to our BU days. So thanks so much for having me.
And if this is your favorite time of the year in 2026, then that is a compliment of the highest order, because 1 month ago today, you entered the newest and biggest chapter of your life. So I've got to lead off with asking you about all things from life as the father of your daughter and forever Valentine, Juliet, not to be confused, by the way, with former Angels and Mets super utility man and disguised Mets manager Bobby Valentine, to life as the husband to a new mother, your beautiful wife, Jackie. How are things going on that front these days?
Things are going great. You know, we had such a great support system the whole way, getting all kinds of advice before Juliet came into the world. My brothers both have young children. Some of my teacher friends have young kids. It's been really awesome to know that it's been 1 month exactly. It's been the quickest month ever, and it's featured some of the longest nights ever as well. But all in all, we absolutely love it. Especially when things get tough. One of my teacher friends at a baby shower held at my school, one of my teacher friends wrote a little note that sticks with me. It said, when things get tough, you know, it's a phase, you struggle with it, you get through it, and then you miss it. And I'm already kind of starting to see that. It's just like she's learning things that you knew every day, getting new understandings. And even during the tough times, it's like, this is so different, but it's really so wonderful. So we are over the moon right now.
I'm glad you're getting time to take it all in, because as a fun fact, I did some research prior to this show. Major League Baseball grants its players a whopping 3 days of parental leave. So awesome that you're getting more than that, but opening day is getting closer with each passing moment. And in the words of Freddie Mercury, the show must go on. So let's go ahead and set the figurative table, which I'd imagine is a lot easier than literally setting the table for a 1-month-old. Here's the tried and true format. We'll recap last year's results, including division predictions, postseason picks, individual awards, and our regular season win total beer bet, which, spoiler alert, I somehow owe you, despite the fact that I swapped my picks, and I fully intend to pay my debt to you in person this summer. Conor, how does that sound?
That sounds amazing. I still can't believe that fluky scenario where you, as we'll recap, you were unbelievable last year. And when you said I won that bet, I said, oh my gosh, something crazy happened. But that sounds great to me. We'll take it any way we can get it.
First things first, the Hops will maintain their position atop our lineup card. Conor, what are you drinking today?
You know, it's kind of mainstream, but with a 1-month-old, you might imagine I'm not doing too much drinking recently. So I'm actually very excited about this. Went to a local bodega. The Kona Big Wave, it hits every single time. I got the big wave today, the 25 ouncer.
The tidal wave.
The tidal wave, if you will. Yeah, my days in Astoria, there was one bar we went to where they had like beer towers. So if you would go for a game, instead of ordering over and over, they had a tower. It was like 128 ounces for a whole table, not just for me, for a whole table. And they had like the really cheap stuff, and they offer Kona as well. So ever since we started those towers, you know, whenever I see it, it really hits well. So we're going to go with this, you know, Hawaii, baseball, summertime vibes. This is our choice for today.
All right. Well played on your end. I'll do my best to match it on my side of things. Changing it up from last year in a sense, but sticking with the same style and a beer that should be familiar to some loyal listeners of the show. This one is Timbo Pils. Holding it up for a view there for those with the video feed. It's a West Coast Pilsner featuring Mosaic and Citra hops, made by Highland Park Brewery right here in LA. Clocks in at 5.8% ABV. And I feel like this West Coast Pilsner style gives us the best of both worlds. Light, crisp, easy drinking, much like a Pilsner would indicate, but also with notes of citrus and stone fruit that you'd find in a lot of really good West Coast IPAs being produced these days, courtesy of those Mosaic and Citra hops. This beer is also a 2-time gold medal winner at the Great American Beer Festival, which is essentially the World Series of craft beer. And I feel like that's fitting for a beer brewed with an eye shot of the home of the now 2-time defending World Series champions. And with one sip, you can really taste why Timbo takes home the hardware. So on that note, Connor, I'll crack this bad boy open. And cheers to our 21 years of baseball predictions, still going strong.
Cheers, buddy.
All right, with that, we are officially off and running. We'll dive into that recap of last year's results, and we will get to some promising results, but please, everybody watching and listening, bear with us as we start with a walk of shame through our division predictions last year. Connor, in the National League, we saw eye to eye on all 3 divisions. Alas, only hit one, and it was the can of corn, the Dodgers, to win the NL West at -500.
Yeah, as I look at the picks from last year, all over the Mets, all over the Cubs, 2 second-place finishes, but I don't think the Cubs were a wild card at least, but only the Dodgers layup paid off for us, and tough sledding in the National League last year.
You'd think, hey, let's hop to the AL, shifting gears. Somehow we managed to fare worse when it came to the junior circuit, only in agreement on one division, but getting it wrong across the board and getting it most wrong by both picking the Blue Jays to finish last in the AL East. Connor, you were early to the party on Toronto before backing off of them last year. I feel like maybe your jumping off the bandwagon was just what they needed to not only win the AL East, but also the AL pennant and come within a hair of winning the whole thing.
That one was personal. That one, I think I've had the Blue Jays in the World Series on this podcast at least once or twice. And for them to do it last year when I finally jumped ship and the Orioles were just so bad. I was feeling so good about them at +310 last year, but man, oh man, they made us look so bad. But you know what? We get back on the horse. We hop right back on this year. We got this.
Yes, and not that our look back could get much worse from here, but it will get significantly better eventually. If we look to the postseason, you had the Mets over the Rangers in the World Series, and both teams ended up missing the playoffs. For the second straight season, I took the boring route, but I hit on the Dodgers to win it all. Not much to write home about at a short price of +290 last year. I would have really been proud had they matched up with my predicted AL champion, the Mariners. If they had just won one more game, they would have claimed their first pennant at 11-1. Connor, I guess if the regular season was an equally dismal push between the two of us, at least in terms of those division winners, I guess I'll claim a bit of a victory when it comes to the postseason last year.
Oh, yeah. I was living vicariously through you because I had, tracked some of your bets. I actually tailed you on a couple, and I saw, oh, my gosh, Matt is on fire in this postseason. Seattle came up so close, and we have some really big Seattle Mariners mutual friends, which kind of stunk for them, and the Blue Jays continue to hurt our feelings. But overall, it was a very exciting playoffs, obviously, right down to the World Series. And I just kind of recapping last year made me so much more excited for this year.
Yeah, and we'll get to this year in just a moment, but we also will rehash our awards picks in the MVP market in the National League. You had Ellie De La Cruz at 20-1. I took, again, the much safer route, hit on Shohei Ohtani at +172. I guess a recurring theme here, not going out on a limb, seemed to be the approach that paid dividends in 2025.
Yeah, Ellie had a great season. You just kind of continue to just kind of, chop at the tree as far as going against Ohtani, but you do it at your own peril. Every single odds just looks so enticing, but if he's going to do his thing and he's going to stay healthy, which, it's great for baseball, but it's really tough with that.
And in the American League, you were on Bobby Witt Jr. at +450. I took a swing at Julio Rodriguez at 20-1. Again, it was a short shot winner, Aaron Judge. Interesting note on Julio Rodriguez, though, you'd taken him in both 2023 and 24 before I took him in 25. I'm wondering if we've collectively learned our lesson, but then again, who's to say if this is the year that he and the Mariners finally get over that hump?
I think Julio just gets nervous. He's listened to the podcast 3 straight years, and his head blows up or something, and he just kind of lets down. But I did not pick him this year. Spoiler alert. So maybe he'll kind of chill out this year.
All right, and we had another winner in the Cy Young market in the National League. You'd hit on Chris Sale at 30-1 in 2024. That still maintains its position as the best call in our time doing this on this show. Last year, you got even more ambitious, taking a flyer on Justin Steele at 60-1. Once again, I was the yin to your yang, staying true to form, going the boring route, but in this case, also the winning route with Paul Skenes at 3-1.
Great call. Great call. Yeah, I think you get that itch. Once you get one long shot, you're like, okay, let's get even better this year. And Justin Steele went down with an injury really, really early on, which was really tough for the Cubs bet as well that we made. So that's just bad luck, but awesome pick by you.
We didn't do quite as well in the American League Cy Young market. You had Garrett Crochet at plus 450. I went with Jacob deGrom at 14-1 as a bit of a reclamation project. The winner for the second straight year, Tarek Skubal. Connor, I guess, at least unlike last year, I no longer have to ask you if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Quite the household name based on these back-to-back performances.
Yeah, he's not slowing down anytime soon. He's been unbelievable. Crochet had an amazing year last year. It was tough. Plus 450 wasn't great odds for him, but Skubal wasn't losing to anybody last year.
When it comes to our regular season win total beer bet, as we've alluded to in 2024, we both swept the board. All 6 of our picks were, this is a reset to 2024, Connor. Before I get to our sweep of last year, I wanted to note that in 24, all 6 of our picks were unders. That went well for me, but it was an 0-3 go for you. And you really adjusted accordingly, going all in on overs in 2025. And that's what led you to a perfect 3 for 3. Reds over 78.5. Guardians over 82.5, and Red Sox over 86.5. Not to be outdone by much. I matched your 3-0, also taking the Reds to go over, along with the Astros under 87.5 and the A's over 71.5. And this is where I'm thinking I might need to play my Notre Dame college football playoff selection committee sore loser card, if you will, and try to re-legislate the rules a bit. I've got a proposal for you here, Connor, because the tiebreaker last year was letting you pick one of our bets as the deciding factor. You went ahead and doubled down on the Guardians as one of your overs. So by letter of the law, victory is cleanly yours. My proposal here, and it won't strip that victory for you from last year in any way, but I'm wondering if we finish with the same record moving forward, looking at margin of victory as a tiebreaker. And if we look at last year, for example, you had the Reds, Guardians, and Red Sox all over. The Reds cleared their number by 4.5 games. Guardians by 5.5, Red Sox by 2.5. So add it all up, your total margin of victory was 12.5 games. I was with you on the Reds over, clearing that by 4.5. Also on the Astros under, and that one came through by the slimmest of margins at just half a game, saved by the hook there. Also had the A's over, and they cleared that by 4.5 games. So my margin of victory was 9.5. So even in this scenario, the 2025 title remains yours by a margin of 12.5 to 9.5 games of victory. How does this new tiebreaker sound to maybe breathe some fresh life into the annual regular season wins beer bet?
I am all in. We did not discuss this before, but I am all in because it's such pressure on me picking the 1 out of the 3 to make my double down. So this is unbelievable for me. This is great. All 3 of my picks will matter the same. So I am in. We got a deal.
All right. And just to chase the rabbit, if you will, I think that when we get to our 2026 regular season win totals, if you had a double down selection, we'd just like to hear it out of curiosity, and we can see if we want to stick with that or go this route. But initially, I'm inclined to maybe see how margin of victory might shake out should we have similar or matching records in the future.
That sounds great. And you know what? If the tiebreaker comes down to 3-0 and 3-0, we'll take it. Let's hope for that again.
Yeah, absolutely. The winnings from the small bets we tend to place on these could more than cover paying off a beer debt if you're looking at a 3-0 losing scenario.
Absolutely.
One final note before we get to our 2026 picks. On the 2025 regular season wins, I wanted to call out that while I may have squeaked by with the Astros, the smallest margin was my most satisfying result because we noted on this show they were lined at 85.5 at Circa, which I view as a sharper book, and having them land on 87 wins turned a loss on the under at that Circa number to a win on the under at 87.5 at DraftKings. So not trying to spin our wheels too much with line shopping, but I think it just really underscores the value of every game or two you can pick up in a regular season market can go a long way. We'll see how that shapes out come our 2026 regular season wins. But first, we will get to 2026 divisions and postseason and individual award picks. Got to lead off with the annual disclaimer. This is more entertainment value than betting value. These numbers have been hammered into place all offseason. We don't make our money betting on baseball. The goal is to provide some value where we can, of course, but please, if you're listening to this or watching this, don't feel compelled to rush to the window based on anything you catch in this episode. We will note the odds for each division winner as of the last price check. And Connor, this year I've tried to adopt a rule of three approach for line shopping, still taking advantage of the concept, but keeping it fairly simple, surveying 3 books for a fair range of prices. And on my end, that would be DraftKings from a more recreational standpoint. Circa is that sharper book, my unofficial source of truth for the purposes of this show. And then FanDuel as a loose proxy for that middle ground. So if that all sounds okay, go ahead and lead us off, starting as always in your backyard with the NL East.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the NL East, as you said, my backyard, I am a gigantic Mets fan, and the Mets have really changed over the heart and soul of their entire team this offseason. If I weren't in my shoes as a Mets fan, I'd be extremely skeptical of the lines that I found. They are in the top 5 to win the World Series. They are the leaders to win this division. And looking objectively, I don't see it. To get rid of Pete Alonso, get rid of Edwin Diaz, get rid of Brandon Nimmo. Yeah, they brought in some great veterans, Jorge Polanco, Marcus Semien. Devin Williams is going to do what he can to kind of make it in New York after being okay with the Yankees. If I weren't in my shoes as a Mets fan, I'd be looking quite a bit to kind of fade them this year. So that being said, I have the Braves winning this division. I found it a plus 230 on FanDuel over here last night. I just think this team has a chip on its shoulder. Everything went horribly last year. This lineup is still loaded, albeit injury concerns. To have Acuna, to have Austin Riley right in the middle of it, to have Ozzie Albies. It's just a very, very strong lineup. And the pitching, if Spencer Strider ever kind of finds his way again, can be terrific. So Braves at plus 230, I have winning this division, followed by the Mets, followed by the Phillies, who I believe won it last year, the Marlins, and the Nationals.
All right, Braves, Mets, Phillies, Marlins, Nationals. I'm just getting this down on my end to see who we match up. I thought I might have been onto something with Atlanta, but not even getting as bold with the Braves as you did. So in the NL East, unlike previous years where I feel like we've aligned right out of the gate, I do have the Mets winning the division. It's a tepid endorsement for reasons you touched on, followed by Atlanta, then Philadelphia, Miami, and Washington. I too was hesitant taking the Mets in part because Circa has the best price on them right now at plus 160 to win the division. And when the sharpest book has the best price, it's usually not one you want to take. But I just couldn't find enough conviction on any of these other teams to rain on your parade on this podcast. So I'm glad that you went ahead and played that role yourself. I was prepared to note that if I was placing one bet on the NL East right now, I would look toward the Braves at that price you called out, plus 230 at FanDuel. And to spare all the details of the math, plus 230 equates to a break-even probability of 30.3%. So if the Braves win the division more than 30.3% of the time, that's a profitable proposition. If we compare that to the plus 205 at Circa right now, that's a 32.8% break-even probability. And that gives us a delta of 2.5 percentage points that might seem small, but when you can get 2.5 percentage points on break-even probability with that sharper book being your source of truth, that's usually something that can make a pretty positive difference in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even here in New York, with all the apps that are available, it used to kind of just be a 1 or 2 show town. Now you have everything. You have MGM, you have Caesars, you have FanDuel, you have DraftKings, and it's no longer a time of, I don't really go shopping because I'm in New York and there's only 1 or 2. No, you got to do your due diligence.
Yeah, good find on Atlanta plus 230. So we will share some pro-Brave sentiment, even though you were the one somehow picking them to win this division. And here I am stuck with the Mets to win the NL East. We'll see how that works out this time around. Maybe I can send some good vibes your way and we'll see what that does. Connor, in the NL Central, what do you got?
NL Central, I'm going to stick with the Cubs. I have them at plus 110 to win the division. I think the lineup is great. They added Alex Bregman, who I think is on the older side, but to have his leadership in the lineup, I still believe in Craig Counsell as the manager, and I just don't have a lot of faith in the other teams in this division. Speaking of the Mets, the Brewers dealt their ace, Freddie Peralta, to the Mets in the offseason, so I can't see them being as strong as last year. So I have the Cubs winning this division at plus 110, followed by Cincinnati, a very young team with a great manager, and Francona getting even better, then Milwaukee, then Pittsburgh, then St. Louis.
All right, when you first mentioned the Cubs, I thought this would be a division where we would be in alignment 1 through 5. I like the bold swing on Cincinnati, even if you don't have them winning the division, to finish in second and maybe contend a bit. We'll see if you have them as a sneaky wild card kind of team. But even if not, just having them finishing second, I think shows you clearly doing your homework and feeling good about what they bring to the table. I'm with you on the Cubs at plus 110 to win this division. And then I've got the Brewers, Pirates, Reds, and Cardinals rounding things out. We're both on Chicago this year. We were both on Chicago last year, and it backfired. But my reasoning is pretty much the same this year, so we'll see if the result can be any different. At Circa, the Cubs are minus 105. FanDuel and DraftKings have that plus 110 price we've mentioned. And when I see something like that, I just figure if the true probability is 50-50, then it's a minus EV bet at Circa's price of minus 105, but a plus EV bet at that FanDuel and DraftKings number of plus 110. So enough of a nudge for me to give the Cubs one more go, at least for the time being. And Connor, I think we know where things start in the NL West, but go ahead and round things out for us with the National League.
I wish I can get cute. I wish I could mess with it. And this division, I think, was within 3 games last year. The Dodgers didn't blow them away, but they are just relentless with their offseason spending. They are so committed to winning. So indeed, the Dodgers, I had them at minus 650 as of last night on FanDuel, which is completely insane. I think we've talked in the past about even pairing them with a different division winner to kind of make things more reasonable. So Dodgers coming in first, Padres second. I have Arizona third, followed by San Francisco. And of course, in their home sweet home, Colorado in 5th place.
All right, so we made it through the National League without a clean 1 through 5 on any division, but we didn't necessarily get the big differences at the top of the board, especially in the Central and the West. I, too, am on the Dodgers at minus 650. I have the Padres in second, maybe a bit of that San Diego born and raised bias on my part, but Padres in second, San Francisco in third, Arizona in fourth, and Colorado rounding out the rear, as you and just about everybody probably also has for this division. I'll call it a parallel to last year when we talked about the Dodgers and laying some serious lumber for them to win this division. I found value on the DraftKings and FanDuel price of minus 650 compared to minus 1,000 at Circa, thinking the break-even probability at minus 650 is 86.7%, break-even probability at minus 1,000, 90.9%. So again, we're talking about deltas of percentage points at break-even probabilities, maybe getting a bit technical, but basically that's a pretty big gap, and it's still really hard to use value at minus 650 in the same sentence. But when we're talking more than 4 percentage points, I'm going to go ahead and roll with the Dodgers once again to win the NL West. Connor, let's flip it over to the AL. Oh, go ahead. Before we do that, go ahead and jump in with any thoughts you might have had based on that Dodgers breakdown.
I even wonder if at minus 1,000, if it got to that on Circa, I'd probably even check out like sprinkling the Padres to win it. Because if it's that low there, maybe the Padres have increased value to win the division more than FanDuel and DraftKings. If it's only 650 there, I'd be interested if maybe sprinkling on someone else if it's that extreme.
That's a good thought. So the Padres are plus 1,200 at Circa. They are plus 950 at FanDuel and plus 900 at DraftKings. So well played on your end. If you think, let's say the Padres have about a 1 in 10 shot of winning this, if you're catching 9-1, 9.5-1, that's in the range of fair value. 12-1 could be a steal if we think Circa's just getting a bit too much Dodgers action, or if they just want to protect against what everybody perceives to be the obvious outcome. So really good call out there.
Sure thing.
All right. Within the American League, we'll start with the East and work our way to Central and West once again. Connor, how does the totem pole stand from your view in the AL East?
You know, I must be turning into a softie in this dad life because I can't imagine 21 years ago saying the Mets are going to come in second and the Yankees would win their division. But here I am growing as an adult man and saying at plus 175, I have the Yankees winning this division. It's a tough division to win. To know that Cole and Rodon are probably coming back at some point, if they are even a shell of themselves, they got some great young pitchers led by Cam Schlittler, who was incredible down the stretch in the playoffs. I'm not going to mess with that lineup and that potential pitching staff with Max Fried as well. So I'm not going to go against them at plus 175. And Toronto, you know, I wasn't there for the wedding. I'm not going to be there for the funeral. I don't have them in second. I don't have them in third. I have the Yankees followed by the Red Sox, the Orioles, God help me, the Blue Jays, and then the Rays.
I feel like in previous years, we discussed the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results. When you had Toronto at the top and it kept not happening. Now I wonder if we're swinging to the opposite extreme of insanity, keeping the Jays buried in your AL East standings after what we just saw last year. But I like the boldness. And outside of that, I think we're largely on the same page. I've got the Yankees winning this division. I do have Toronto in second, followed by the Red Sox, Orioles, and Rays. And I feel like I have a parallel, if you will, to the NL East and New York's other team, Trepidation taking the best price at Circa, where the Yankees can be had for plus 185 compared to plus 180 at DraftKings and plus 175 at FanDuel. It's a small enough difference that I feel like I'm not going to read too much into it. And also maybe I'm just loyal enough to my wife, Allison, who was born and raised in New York and remains a Yankee fan, to go ahead and put the pinstripes atop the AL East.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and mark you down for that Circa price if you want as well. I mean, if we're going to roll the dice on the Yankees, might as well take 10 cents better than what FanDuel is posting and go with plus 185 on the Yankees in the AL East. Connor, in the AL Central, how do you see it shaking down?
In the Central, I have not liked this team ever since they destroyed the Mets in the World Series once upon a time, but I did land on Kansas City at plus 210. If they get just one more season from Salvador Perez being at the top of his game, their 1-4 is scary. Of course, led by Bobby Witt Jr., Maikel Garcia. They have a really stacked lineup. Their pitchers can stay healthy. Seth Lugo comes to mind, I think, because I just feel like it's been a long time since any team in this division has impressed me, that stood out to me. You know, I feel like I've taken the Guardians a few times just on a whim or because Francona was their manager. So I'm going to land on KC, followed by Detroit with the amazing Skubal and Verlander's back there now. We'll see what happens with them. Cleveland in third, Minnesota in fourth, and Chicago in fifth.
All right, we're close on this one, just flipping 1 and 2. And I thought, again, kind of like the Braves, I thought the Royals might be the team that I was a bit higher on without picking them to win the division, but really to contend more than a lot of people might be thinking. You are clearly a bit more of a believer in the Royals than I am. I have the Tigers, then the Royals, then the Guardians, Twins, and White Sox. This is the 3rd out of 5 divisions so far where I'm taking a team that has the best price at the sharpest book. Again, that doesn't make me feel great about all this, but we're talking about a slim difference between Detroit being plus 115 at Circa and plus 110 at FanDuel and DraftKings. And I also see a substantial gap in the odds between the Tigers and the rest of the pack. I feel like this has been my Yahtzee division, as I called it last year, and maybe even years before that. This one, again, I won't be stunned if it shakes out in any order, especially if Kansas City does end up winning it. But I just feel more conviction than I have in a while about one team to win it, that being the Tigers this year round. Maybe just really relying on what I saw most recently from Skubal, winning a second straight Cy Young. And even though the Tigers didn't advance past the Mariners, just some outstanding pitching as we've come to expect from him in the postseason as well.
Yeah, when in doubt, pitching. You know, when you have Skubal, it's just he eats up innings. He does great. He stayed relatively healthy after some, obstacles early on. So I can't falter there.
All right. Well, speaking of pitching, that is probably the anthem of the team I've got atop the AL West. Let's see if it's the same for you.
I don't think it will be, because I saw the Houston Astros at plus 260, and I said, it seems like a while since that happened. And I don't see enough kind of fallback from them to say that they're not going to finish first. And I think that's kind of a swing, especially with what Seattle did last year. But I do have the Astros at plus 260 at some value, finishing in first place. The pitching has some question marks, especially with Valdez heading elsewhere. But I think the lineup is still battle-tested. I think Christian Walker had a nightmare season for them last year. If he is even half of what he was in Arizona, he could be a strong bat in that lineup. Alvarez is still there. Altuve is still there. So I'm going to take Houston as somewhat of a swing to finish in first. And I'm taking an even bigger swing in second. Don't ask them where they're from, because they don't even know. Yes. From the Shadow Realms, the Athletics, who are listed as the Athletics, which I just love so much. I have them finished in second place in this division. I love the lineup, of course, led by Nick Kurtz, Shea Langoliers, Brent Rooker, Soderstrom, Lawrence Butler, my old buddy Jeff McNeil. I just think it's a up-and-coming team who I would love to root for this year. I have the Athletics in second place, followed by Seattle, Texas, and the Angels. Apologies to you.
How dare you? No, we will get to the Angels in just a bit. But when we look at the top of your AL West pecking order, both the Astros and A's will come up again when we get to the regular season win total side of things. So a little bit of a tease as far as that goes. But I'm still going to ride Seattle. I really like, again, to your point about the pitching they bring to the table, enough offense. I just feel like they came so close to getting over the hump last year, and I would love to see them do it again this year. If that's going to happen, then claiming this division, going to be a big first step. I'm going to pick them to do it, followed by Texas, Houston, the Athletics, and the Angels. I too felt like I might be relatively bullish on the A's, but maybe they're just that sleeper team that everybody thinks is a sleeper. So by definition, maybe we can't call them that. But even putting them in fourth place, I was like, man, they seem like they bring a lot of upside to the table, and I wouldn't be stunned, and I would actually be very happy if you're right, having them in second and just one of those surprise contenders, and feel good stories of a team playing out of a minor league ballpark without a home, a bit nomadic for the next couple of years, but plenty of talent, as you touched on. So that'll be a fun one to watch. I'll note on my price for Seattle, and actually first on your price for Houston, I checked Circa as you were breaking that down, and they're offering 3-1. So if you want to take that price, again, sometimes the book with the best price, and when it's the best price by that kind of margin, maybe a bit of a red flag, but you laid out a pretty sound rationale. So I can put you down for plus 300 on the Astros for record keeping purposes.
That's terrific. And as I'm sure we'll get to in a second, I think technically my biggest swing in all this, I checked the Athletics as a wild card, plus 410 on fan. So why not just, if you're going to go all, if you're going to go all out, why not just really either look really good or really bad? So plus 410 really stood out. And technically having the Mariners in third for myself, they're plus 210 to miss the playoffs. So if I were to really go all out with this, might as well, kind of align myself financially with that as well.
Yeah, so I guess these might not make the show notes. I'll try to put our division picks and postseason picks and awards in the show notes. Everybody has it documented for easy reference. But to reward those who are actually listening to this, if you find value in these insight and want to take a small flyer on the Padres at 12-1 to win the NL West, the A's at plus 410 to make the postseason, and the Mariners at plus 210 to miss the postseason. Those are three maybe sneaky bets we're just putting out there over the course of this conversation for the tried and true listeners of the entire show.
Appreciate that.
I cannot endorse the Seattle play myself, but I appreciate the way you're looking at this and trying to find actual value on the betting board to go along with maybe some rooting interest throughout the course of the season. I do have them winning the AL West, and I'm seeing them at even money at DraftKings. I'll take that over minus 105 at both Circa and FanDuel. But I'm going to need a moment, if we may, to dwell in the cellar and unload as a disenchanted Angels fan. Connor, first, I just need to ask you, where does my need to vent rank among the best bets, i.e. the most obvious and painfully predictable parts of this podcast?
I can't believe it's still going on. I just, in addition to the Mets, I am a big Jets fan, as you know, and the parallel, not to be too drastic, but I'm really starting to see the parallels of just spinning the wheels. I feel like at least with the Angels, like with the Dodgers in town, there's kind of like they can kind of get lost and, dare I say, irrelevant. Whereas it's not like LOL Angels, which is so crazy because having Trout, having Ohtani once upon a time, but it's just so wild how year after year after year, this is like part of what I look forward to so much is this event session. So please, the floor is yours. I look forward to it.
All right. You summed it up much more succinctly than I'll be able to. And in the spirit of Jets West, here goes. So this is our 6th year doing this in podcast form. Might be my 6th year mentioning that Mike Trout still hasn't played more than 140 games since 2016. But he's also produced fewer than 3 wins above replacement 4 times in the last 5 seasons, failing in each of the last 2 years to even match his WAR from the pandemic-shortened 2020 season. So whether or not he's on the field seems like it's not as impactful as it once was, for better or worse. I feel like I might need to retire that bit and stop harping on it, especially because Trout could go 0 for the rest of his career and still go down as the greatest Angel of all time with a surefire ticket to Cooperstown. Connor, what I can't abstain from harping on isn't just that Artie Moreno still owns the team, but wait, there's more this year. He now says fans don't prioritize winning. So I guess he doesn't see a connection between why I went to more than 20 games per season from 2002 to 05, which included a World Series championship, 2 division titles, and 3 postseason appearances in 4 years. And why, on the flip side, I can only recall attending less than a handful of games in Anaheim during baseball's longest playoff drought, spanning 11 seasons, going on 12. And I'm not alone here. The Angels haven't sniffed 3 million fans since before the pandemic, while those quote-unquote crosstown rival Dodgers have shattered the 3 million mark every year during the Angels' postseason drought, drawing more than 3.7 million each season. Of course, we're going to exclude 2020 and 21 for attendance purposes when fans were limited, if allowed at all. But the Dodgers just last year set a new franchise record with more than 4 million fans en route to their 2nd straight World Series championship, their 4th straight division title, and their 12th NL West crown in 13 years. Connor, it's almost as if there is a causation between winning and fans showing up. I'm going to take a breath. I'm almost done. I've just got to note that if anything, it's Moreno himself who doesn't prioritize winning. Courtesy of some research I did before this show with my new friend Claude, the Angels' projected payroll this season, $144 million, down $48 million year over year, and the lowest it's been since 2015. Again, excluding a 60-game season in 2020. But these figures are without even accounting for inflation. The Angels are on track to have the 18th highest payroll in baseball this year, despite having that 2nd biggest media market plastered in front of their team's name, despite the fact that they're in neither the city nor the county of Los Angeles, but you know who made that decision when he bought the team. And to wrap this all up, I'll note that I'd consider myself one of the least surprised people in the world if the Angels set a new low for the worst record in franchise history for the 2nd time in 3 years after losing 99 games in 2024. But I have a hard time believing anyone would be more surprised than Artie Moreno based on the way he continues to gut the organization. And on that cheerful note, Connor, thank you very much for listening to my TED Talk.
You're very welcome. And you know what, not to always make the Mets the main character, but the new owner, Steve Cohen, they had a magical run in 2024, as you saw. And after that run, Cohen actually really challenged, as he does, goes to his social media, he really challenged the fans saying the attendance was unacceptable. And he brought in Juan Soto and he brought in some big time players, which is not the Moreno style, as we know, but he challenged the fans. He said, listen, I'm going to buy these players, but we need more attendance at the ballpark. And the fans really responded last year. And of course, it was one of the more disastrous second halves in the history of the franchise. So if the owner just kind of shows an ability to play ball with the fans, to be real with them, hey, we will spend this money, but we need you to come to the ballpark. It can't just be my fans don't prioritize winning. They don't come to the ballpark, because it's got to be a two-way street. So I'm really with you on what you're saying there. With the Wilpon era of the Mets, it was much of the same. Yeah,
well, for better or worse, misery loves company, and I know you can relate to it. I'm going through it now, but we can go ahead and pivot from Artie and his Angels abyss to the promised land that is the postseason for at least 27 or so teams that probably feel they've got a reasonable shot at it. Let's think about this being our 4th year with the new postseason format, maybe giving it a shot without the full preamble of how the structure works. Connor, I'll toss it to you for the NL playoff field, giving us your seeds 1 through 6, as well as how you see things playing out in the wild card round, division series, and the National League Championship Series.
Perfect. We won't give our listeners a preamble, but I did give myself a 3 a.m. personal preamble in between baby feeds, because for the 4th straight year, I have no idea how these playoffs work. But I did do this right, I promise. So for the NL playoffs, the seeds: 1, Dodgers, 2, Braves, which I understand to be the 2 bye teams in this format. Number 3 is the Cubs, the worst division winner, if you will. I have the Padres in the 4 spot, the Mets in the 5 spot, and the Reds in the 6 spot. So, which brings us to the matchups. The bye teams are to the side for now. I do have my beloved Mets over the Padres in the first round, and I have the Cubs over the Reds in the first round. And I did see, based on last year, it doesn't look like they reseed in this format, because I think the 4 versus 5 plays the 1 no matter what. That's what happened last year in one of the leagues. So based on that, the number 1 Dodgers are going to play the Mets, and they're going to beat the Mets in the divisional, and the Braves are going to beat the Cubs, which sets up a matchup that I feel like we've seen a lot of times, but still feels kind of exciting to me. And it's the Braves over the Dodgers in the National League Championship Series. And I had, as of last night on FanDuel, plus 1,000 for the Atlanta Braves to be champions of the National League.
All right, 10-1. I'm going to see if I can pull up my Circa app. I've got to be on the app to get Circa's odds, and it likes to log me out if I haven't been on too recently. Okay, cool. It still has me in here. Odds to win the pennant. Let's get some NL teams. 915. Okay, so you did find a better price at 10-1. We'll give you that. I'm going to have to think on the fly a bit here because I thought we could skip the preamble, but you bring up a good point about the bracket being fixed. If they're not reseeding here, I'm just going to take a quick moment and look at what I've got. So if the 1 gets the 4-5 no matter what, and then the 2 would get the 3-6 either way. Okay, I think I'm good here. I think I still have it right. Cool. All right, so I'm with you on the Dodgers as the 1 seed. I'm with you on the NL East champion getting the 2 seed. In my case, that would be the Mets. I'm with you on the Cubs as the NL Central champs being the number 3 seed, the best wild card team, if you will. I've got Padres 4. A lot of similarities so far. I have the Brewers as my 5. So your Reds are my Brewers this year. And I've also got the Braves in the field. They are my 6th seed. So I've got the Cubs over the Braves, Padres over Brewers in the wildcard series. If we look to the division series, that sets up a truly divisional matchup between the Dodgers and Padres. I really wanted to put the Padres through. I just couldn't do it if I tried to be objective here. So I've got Dodgers over Padres. You're going to like the pick of the Mets over the Cubs, however. And the NLCS, it gets chalky around later than I believe you had them facing off. Yes, that's correct. Around later, I've got the Dodgers knocking out the Mets. And for anyone watching or listening who hates this pick, you may be in luck because once again, I'm making a pick where the sharpest book has the best price. That probably doesn't bode well for me here, but the Dodgers are a whopping plus 130 to win the pennant at Circa compared to plus 120 at DraftKings and plus 115 at FanDuel. Connor, this was my NLCS pick last year, and the promise remains that if we get this matchup, I'm going to implore you to catch a game or two in LA where you will still have a place to stay and plenty of beer with your name on it in the fridge.
Oh my gosh, book that, please. You know I'm in for that. Absolutely. And if it's Mets Dodgers, I'm just imagining Edwin Diaz coming in to close the game at Citi Field for LA. And oh man, the fans are that would really, really be something. And the TV networks would drool over that one. So
where would that rank compared to, I believe it was Mets fans throwing batteries at John Rocker?
John Rocker, yes, that's old school. Hopefully Edwin Diaz doesn't cross too many lines with comments about New York and their subway system. But that would really be something because it was a strange situation. Diaz didn't seem like he wanted to stay, but David Stearns didn't seem like he really went out on a limb to get him. So it was a unique situation, but man, he has shown he can be a little frail sometimes mentally when he's not on his game. I'm sure the Citi Field faithful in the NLCS, that will really be something.
All right. Well, the National League could have plenty of intrigue in store. We'll see if that holds true for the American League, at least by the way of our predictions. Connor, give us your postseason rundown for the American League.
Sure thing. Yeah, again, the pitching is just too good for me, and there's no other AL team that really stands out. So I do have the Yankees 1, and I have the Astros 2. So I'm sure Houston would love to get that bye. After that, Kansas City, of course, is the central winner in the 3 spot. I go East Coast bias for the wild cards. I have the Red Sox in 4th. I have the Orioles actually returning to the playoff promised land, the 5 spot. And as I alluded to, my swing of swings, the Shadow Realm Athletics in the 6th spot. I just think it'll be so exciting to see them in these playoffs. So if that's the case, the Yankees and Astros go to the side for the first round. And why not? Athletics over the Royals in round 1. And
that was the play-in game, I believe, in 2014. This would be a fun way to revisit that as 2 of the surprise teams once again in 2026.
You're right about that. Yeah. So Athletics over the Royals in the first round, and the interdivision matchup, Boston squeaking out over Baltimore. I spent a while on that one, but I did settle on Boston winning that one. To bring the top 2 seeds back into play, the top 2 seeds both do advance. Yankees over Red Sox, always a treat, and the Astros over the Athletics, which sets up, again, much like a classic ALCS matchup, Yankees-Astros. I don't know who says no to that, but I do have the Yankees over the Astros. I found the Yankees at plus 450 to win the American League pennant.
All right, I will once again check Circa briefly to see if we can do any better with the Yankees. Okay, they're plus 440 there, so you did find a better number with that plus 450. We will give that to you as a widely available number. And I came pretty close to having your same AL champion, but things were a little bit disparate in other areas. I have Seattle as my 1 seed. You don't even have them in your playoff picture. So I feel like the Mariners and Astros might be our fulcrum points when it comes to teams this year. AL West going to have a lot of intrigue, despite the fact that I don't need to see a pitch of Angels baseball all year long, or probably for several years to come. But I'll bury that hatchet for now and move on. AL, Seattle 1, Yankees 2, Detroit 3 as the AL Central champ, and then wildcard teams Toronto 4, Kansas City 5, Boston 6. Calling for a bit of an upset, Boston over Detroit, and then a bit more chalky, Toronto over Kansas City, which if I adjusted correctly on the fly here based on your note that they do not reseed, that would lead us to my 1 seed Seattle advancing past my 4 seed Toronto in the division series, as well as my 2 seed Yankees advancing over the 6th seeded Red Sox. So even though Seattle's the higher seed here, they might draw a higher seed relative to the wildcard teams. The 1 could get the 4 and the 2 seed could get the 6 based on research you've done. So we'll go with that. Seattle over Toronto, Yankees over Red Sox. In the ALCS, another rematch. I feel like every year, at least one of us calls for a rematch of that 0-1 ALCS, where I think Seattle won 116 games, but the Yankees just crushed their dreams. And this time, I'm going to call for Seattle to get past the Yankees. That number is 5-1 at FanDuel and DraftKings for Seattle to win its first pennant. I will take that over the plus 440 at Circa. I know, Connor, for years, I've been high on Mariners pitcher George Kirby as the pride of my wife's hometown of Rye, New York. Still unlikely for the Mariners to get here, but after they got within 1 win of the World Series last year, it feels at least maybe as realistic as that ever has been for Seattle to get over that hump.
Absolutely. Listen, the talent is there. I'm not being fair to them because for some reason I'm kind of grouping the 2024 surprise, 2024 Mets really had that dream season.
There's a Mets parallel for
there's
every
always,
story, and you've
it
got them
always
baked.
comes back. It always comes back to the Mets, as you know. I just kind of, in Seattle, everything was fun last year. They were incredible. It was a magic carpet ride. I saw out the Mets in 2024, and it can be a tough come down sometimes in 2025. They're going to sneak up on nobody this year. Cal Raleigh's not going to surprise anybody this year. So it just gives me a little bit of pause on them. But I know I can look very, very silly with these picks in about 6 months or so.
You might be onto something, though, and I considered this a bit. I just don't know enough to take a firm stance on it. But in the NFL, there's that Super Bowl hangover effect, especially for the losing team. And I still don't even know how to put my finger on that for the NFL, but I've seen it enough that I believe there may be something there. And maybe it's that in football, if you make the Super Bowl and lose, you still played more games than all but one other team. If you made the Super Bowl, you still probably have some players who are going to get a payday somewhere else. Same with the coaching staff. So if you have the extra wear and tear, if you maybe lose some of your top talent, and if there is just anything that I can't quantify about losing a game on that stage, there may be a bit of a parallel to Seattle, as you're pointing out. So I hope you're wrong, but I will understand if you're right. So we'll see. You've got the Mariners out of the playoffs, and I've got them going quite a ways here. Connor, let's see how the World Series is going to shake out as far as our predictions go. Who do you have winning it, and in how many games?
You know, elementary school Connor is absolutely crying himself to sleep tonight over this pick. But in the Yankees versus Braves World Series, God help me, I do have the Yankees winning it. I have the Yankees listed at plus 1,000 to win the World Series. And as I always do, I look up the exact matchup. The Yankees over the Braves is plus 10,000 if I wanted to sprinkle a couple of dollars on that. But that is my World Series, and I'm sticking with it.
Got it. Okay, we've got the Yankees over the Braves at 10-1. That seems to be a consensus price. I'm seeing that at Circa as well. I like to look at the exact matchup as well for anybody who wants to consider it. And Connor, just for fun, not for any betting purposes here. I don't believe this market is even existing anywhere right now. But how many games would you pin for that Yankees-Braves potential World Series?
Oh, I put it in 7. Yep, I put it in 7. I think it's going to be a great series. Can't wait.
All right, I am going to try to save my best for last here after picking the same LCS matchups and the same league winners as last year. This is where I will deviate slightly and try to open my arms to chaos, going with the Mariners over the Dodgers in 7 games. David over Goliath, if you will, a team that's never even been to the World Series to knock off the back-to-back defending World Series champs. The Mariners are 12-1 at FanDuel and DraftKings. I'll take that versus the 10-1 price I'm seeing at Circa. Connor, I know the Astros might be a bit of a polarizing team for us, but it seems like the Mariners are really going to make or break it when it comes to which one of us is right and which one of us may be dead wrong coming the 2026 look back about a year from now.
Yeah, it's tough being on this side of things because I'm nothing against them, I promise. And I can't believe it's the Yankees taking their. I'm going to bat for the Yankees instead of them. But here we are. That life has changed me. I guess it's the sleep deprivation.
Yeah, I don't know. Some things can just harden a soul, and time can be a bit magic when it comes to that. So I guess with the Mariners, I've got our mutual friend Gordon, among others, on my side. And when we get to regular season wins, I know we've got another mutual friend who will at least enjoy one of the picks I've got to throw out there. But before we get there, we've also got our individual awards. Connor, in the MVP market, starting in the National League, who do you have for 2026?
Well, it's been about 45 seconds since I discussed the Mets. So let's go ahead and put Juan Soto on there. Juan Soto is a player, when I see him listed at plus 750, the talent does not match those odds. I know Ohtani completely messes things up, but I just cannot look at a board where Juan Soto sits there at plus 750 and not sprinkle at least a couple of pennies on it. He's now in his second year with the Mets. If you look back on big free agents with the Mets, I'm thinking Mike Piazza, I'm thinking Carlos Beltran. The second year was where they really, really got comfortable and exploded to their true potential. He is still super young. He's been in the league forever now, but I think he is going to have an absolutely monster season. The Mets are going to rely on him, especially early on, because Francisco Lindor has a hamate injury, which seems to be very, very dicey in terms of how good he can be. So with Pete Alonso gone, with Brandon Nimmo gone, this is Juan Soto's team along with Lindor, and I think he's going to have a monster year at plus 750.
All right, and I'm seeing plus 800 at Circa, so I'll go ahead and put you down for that. A bit of a swing. I guess anybody except for Ohtani would constitute quite a swing in the NL, and I'm not going to take that swing. For me, it's a case of if it ain't break, don't fix it. Ohtani minus a minus number in front of the MVP odds. Ohtani minus 125 at DraftKings. Hard to say there's any value at these historic odds, but I cruised with Ohtani last year, and at this point, I think I'm just going to keep riding him until proven wrong.
Yeah, because the only thing that seems to be able to stop him would be an injury, and nobody wants that. So you know what? It's money that's, again, it's crazy to see minus odds. I think baseball historians are going to look back one day and say, what was going on here where an MVP was in the minus? That was really something. But can't blame you at all.
And the American League, any bigger swing than Soto, or are we sticking with some of the shorter favorites?
No, we got to swing as well. If I'm Mr. Athletic, I'm going to be Mr. Nick Kurtz at plus 1,500. He just exploded onto the scene last year in not a full season whatsoever. He had well over 30 home runs, RBIs everywhere. I think in this lineup, the A's are going to go as he goes. They're an exciting team. He's their most exciting player. And we're going to take a swing on Nick Kurtz at plus 1,500. And I'm just looking at this name on my doc right now. I'm saying there's a really good chance in March of 2027, you're going to say, what the hell were you doing with Nick Kurtz? But here we are, and we're taking a swing.
All right, and we'll make it a slightly bigger swing, 16-1, the price at Circa. So we'll go ahead and give you that number to get the best of it. On my end, I'm going to give a look to a familiar name, Bobby Witt Jr., plus 500 at DraftKings. My second straight season going with your guy from the prior year, and that price of plus 500 at DraftKings, 50 cents better than what I'm seeing at Circa and 100 cents better than what I'm seeing at FanDuel. Connor, you were early on Toronto in 2024. Let's see if you were also early on Witt in 2025. I know you've got the Royals winning their division. If I too have them sneaking into the postseason, it's probably going to be with Witt leading the way.
And you know what? He couldn't have gotten off to a better start in the fans' hearts. He's had an unbelievable baseball classic. Not that I'm glued to that, but he's been incredible for the American team in the baseball classic. So he's already endearing himself early on here.
And my NL Cy Young pick is going to play a pivotal role in Team USA's next game in the Classic. But before we get there, let's see if you maybe went a bit more off the reservation with your prediction for NL Cy Young in 2026.
Not this time. I forgive you for taking Bobby Witt Jr. because I'm taking Paul Skenes for the Cy Young. I found him at plus 225. Maybe you got a better number, but he's just unbelievable. Again, it's another case of I feel like only injury can stop him, and nobody wants that. So I will happily cheer for him all season at plus 225 for the Pirates.
Gotcha. And I am seeing a plus 240 at FanDuel. So we will lock in that number for the two of us because just like Ohtani for MVP, I'm going to let it ride with Skenes after he cashed for me last year. Also, like Ohtani, it was a short price then. It's an even shorter price now. So this continues to be more about predictions than betting value, if you will. After getting Skenes at 3-1 last year, I'm going to take that best price currently available for a repeat win. Again, that's plus 240 at FanDuel. Connor, one more awards market to get to. AL Cy Young. Who's your guy?
You know, I got really greedy stealing your picks because I'm going to take Jacob deGrom. I just think he's still at his best. Skenes is unbelievable. I think for one game in his prime, I'll take deGrom as the best pitcher in baseball. And I think at plus 1,300, as I saw, I'm going to jump all over that. If he is healthy, he is unbelievable. And it's easy to forget about that because of all the injuries. But he had some really good numbers last year, albeit in a shorter season. If he puts it all together, that is a great value of plus 1,300.
Yeah, I felt pretty good about that pick last year. I believe it was in a similar price range. Let me see if I can quickly pull that up. Here we go. Last year, I had deGrom as a reclamation project at 14-1. And he really showed a lot last year. So to still be getting 13-1, I wonder if part of that is he's another year older. Skubal is just that much more dominant than the rest of the pack. But for what deGrom put out there last season, to still get 13-1 seems like a very understandable pick. This is one where, thankfully, I will get one pick where I'm taking a bigger swing than you. So it's interesting to be in this role this time. I will take a Mariner for the third time in 4 years, but it's not going to be Kirby. It'll be his teammate Brian Wu at 20-1. I'm seeing that at DraftKings and Circa. And there's definitely a reason he's a 20-1 long shot. Advanced stats like xERA, xFIP imply negative regression with his ERA. And I know a lot of voters can get fixated on that as a pretty crude rule of thumb. Also, when it comes to injury risk, he missed some time in the postseason with pectoral inflammation. Also, just getting any postseason workload as he did can make it maybe a bit more taxing to bounce back for the next full season. But that said, I don't have to squint too hard to see this one. Thinking about pedigree, he finished 5th last year, so he's already on voters' radars. He has elite command, 27.1% strikeout rate, 198 strikeouts last season, 4.9% walk rate, 4th best among qualified starters. So when voters might look for those strikeout to walk splits, Wu is going to be at or near the top of the board in all likelihood. And he's got some good durability when he stays healthy. Last year in the regular season, putting up 30 starts. That's a vintage number for a lot of pitchers these days. But 30 starts, getting past 186 innings. I feel like 180 is the new 200. So to get north of 186 and make 30 starts puts him in pretty good company. He's also in a very pitching-friendly ballpark that could help maybe curb some of the regression that the advanced metrics could be calling for here. And in his age 26 season, maybe, just maybe, he's entering a breakout window. Beyond that, just a couple of small personal nudges. If I'm picking Seattle to go all the way, then that would correspond pretty strongly with Wu having a really good season, breaking through even more so than last year. And I also like the fact that he pitched at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Not much of a baseball town as far as I'm aware, but a beautiful town nevertheless along the central coast of California. Allison and I have a fun new tradition spending our Thanksgiving there. So I'll just say that that also sprinkles in just a little bit of extra rooting interest to go along with a tiny bit of betting interest.
Always great to have a personal touch on that. And yeah, like you said, if we've learned that durability is more than half the battle. So if he's shown the ability to do that and he has that kind of talent, you're already ahead of the game at 20-1.
All right, we've covered division winners, the postseason, individual awards, maybe the area where we've shown the most actual betting value over the years. And again, who's to say what's in store for this year? And even though the track record recently has shown signs of promise, we're not going to just, unload the bankroll on these. I do feel like this could be where some of the most alpha might come in the show. Connor, regular season win totals. We'll get your first one, then we can alternate picks from there. You've had a fun theme the last couple of years. No obligation whatsoever this time around, but did you come up with a theme for your regular season win picks this year?
A theme treated me well a couple of years ago where if the books list like a super, super big change, I kind of lean into it. And when I saw Baltimore at 85.5, I believe that clears them by 10 games from last year, which is quite a jump. And I'm going to jump in on that. I have Baltimore going over 85.5, which I saw at minus 114. I think the Orioles just had one of those seasons last year, much like the Braves actually, where everything goes wrong. They never get their legs under them. And baseball can be a really long, cruel summer if things aren't going right. I think they have a fresh start now, a young, talented team. I will take the Orioles to go over 85.5.
That's a fun one to root for. And I've also got a fun one to root for, taking a stand against a team. And it's a team that you're high on. Give me Houston under 86.5, minus 110 at DraftKings. My recurring theme when we get to these win totals, trusting my source of truth. Circa has Houston lined at 84 wins. So we're talking about a delta of 2.5 games. That's the biggest I can recall seeing between two books this close to opening day. So I'm going to go back to the well with the same team and the same angle that came through by the skin of its teeth last year, thinking that with Circa's number of 84, win total of 84 for Houston would result in the push. 85 or 86 would be a loser. But at DraftKings, any win total in that range, 84 to 86, if not lower, gets this home with a win. And as we saw just last year with this very team, landing in this range feels like it's squarely on the table.
They will, again, yes, they have a lot of questions on the pitching staff. A lot can go wrong in Houston. So, yeah, that's a great call.
All right, moving on to our second picks. What's next on your end?
I'm going to go to one that's kind of similar to yours. You are fading Houston. I just think, and it's nothing to do with the rivalry, 89.5 was a little rich for the Phillies for me. I'm going to go under 89.5. I think that whole lineup is 1 year older. Real Muto and Harper. And Zach Wheeler has a very strange injury going on that hopefully he bounces back from. He's a personal favorite of mine, but I just think a lot more can go wrong than right. There was that bizarre story where Nick Castellanos is no longer on the team because of some nefarious behavior. I just think that in a tough division on top, yes, they might destroy Miami and Washington, but 89.5 jumped out as a little too spicy for Philadelphia for me.
A drive into deep left field by Castellanos. Might not be hearing that again for a bit, at least as far as any Phillies games are concerned. And I will not pass that along to my friend Joe Brennan, a legend in the sports betting field who joins me every week for the Prime Suspects podcast. He's a big Phillies fan, might not like this, but Connor, I do like the way you've broken this down, especially because I took a look at Circa's lines and they've got the Phillies at 88.5. So even one game, it might sound infinitesimal. Finding a delta of a full game between a really sharp book and a more recreational book can be really promising. Again, this close to opening day in a pretty efficient market. So I don't have the Phillies on my card, but based on the number you found, could only look the same way. And I feel like you're going to look the same way as this pick I've got teed up right now as well. The Athletics over 75.5 at reduced juice, minus 105 at DraftKings. The way you're reacting, I'm guessing this might be your third pick. We'll see about that in a moment. I know on my side, this is two regular season win total picks and two repeats from last year when I had the Astros under and the A's over. I didn't seek that out the same way I was pretty insistent on riding Ohtani and Skenes again in the awards markets. But these regular season win total numbers kind of revealed the path for me. I think that we've got an intentionally low bar with trying to provide betting value on the show, trying to have fun with it more than anything else. But this kind of approach is where I would argue we offer the most value on the show, as I touched on earlier. Looking at it this way, Circa's got the A's lined at 76.5, DraftKings 75.5, minus 105 to the over. So we're talking about not only a full game, but also reduced VIG on top of that. So this makes 76 our magic number with the A's this season. It would be a loser at Circa, a winner at DraftKings, and a personal nudge, kind of like you touch on reasons that you would enjoy rooting for the A's this season. I love Las Vegas, their future home. I know they're targeting 2028 for the new stadium on the Strip, but it seems like right now they're actively building for that future, finally starting to prioritize retaining a lot of their young stars, and I think that could give them a long tail when it comes to the upside.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Athletics, as you alluded to, I am riding shotgun with you on that one. And I'm very happy to hear that vig on your end because I saw over 75.5 at minus 112. So we'll take that loose change where we can get it. I just think it's their time. And sure, I think some of this is baked into me fading the Mariners a bit. If the Mariners go on to destroy them and, eight times instead of 5 times, as you said, that could be the difference in the delta. So I'm going to ride with the A's over 75.5, and I look forward to rooting for it.
It's uncanny how many times we prepare completely independently and have 30 teams to choose from, 2 sides either way. So there are 60 possible outcomes. I know we're each picking 3, but still, what are the odds that I think when we first started doing this, we had back-to-back years where we had 1, if not 2 disagreements. And then the last couple of years between being in on the Reds over last year and the A's over this season, just a lot of the same teams we're identifying, initially looking at things differently, and at least the past couple of years rowing in the same direction when it comes to the Reds in 25 and the A's in 26. I'm going to finally get to a new one, not repeating my third pick from last year as I have off the bat with the Astros and A's. This is a queasy one. The Colorado Rockies over 54.5 wins, minus 115 at DraftKings. Circa's number is 56 for the Rockies, and you know the drill. When I see a delta of a game and a half, I'm going to take it. Landing on 55 or 56, well, that's a really lousy record. It does turn this from a loser at Circa into a winner at DraftKings. I feel like it's going to be a long season for our friend and Denver weather guru, Chris Bianchi, but here's to this being a silver lining on his side of things. So to recap it, Connor, you've got Baltimore over 85.5, Philadelphia under 89.5, and the Athletics over 75.5. I've got Houston under 86.5, with you on the Athletics over 75.5, and just trying to swallow the pill and get to the window for a small flyer on Colorado over 54.5. We talked about using margin of victory as a tiebreaker, and I'm guessing it might be necessary this year if the A's were that team that you had circled as your team to double down on, should things net out with us having the same record here.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Athletics were the first team I had listed on here. They are my guys this year. And, as you said, the listeners come here just for more recreational fun. And I can't think of having more fun than this young up and coming team that's been so dormant for a while and them having their time.
Yeah, I guess the AL West is our division this year because the Mariners and Astros have us as just complete opponents in one sense, and the A's are that team we're riding together. So it'll be a fun ride in the AL West, even if the Angels are a non-factor once again. Connor, let's turn the page from our predictions to a couple pillars of the show in the Malinsky Minute and the Hops to round things out. Starting with the Malinsky Minute, 1 month from today will mark 8 years since David Malinsky was last seen. And as we've talked about before, he was so well-rounded and he had friends across so many walks of life. I think about sports betting, the community he found with Mount Charleston, his relationships with pretty much everybody who owned or also frequented local independent restaurants in the Las Vegas Valley. And I've got to say, if anybody I know has Dave matched when it comes to that vast social circle, it's you. And that is clearly evidenced by your taking the lead in organizing a 20-year reunion this summer for our Boston University crew of freshmen living on 11C and Warren Towers way back in the 2005-2006 school year. Connor, I wanted to ask you how you go about making and maintaining such a breadth of deep friendships. And if you wouldn't mind humoring me, what might be cooking when it comes to that BU reunion this summer?
Yeah, of course. When it comes to friends, I guess it's just like my upbringing being one of 4 boys. I've always kind of gotten along with my brothers. So when it comes to like guy talk, just being a positive people person, I don't really like to rattle cages. I actually consider myself like an introvert until I get like really warm and comfortable with people. And then, I maintain friendships because I think just generally on life, I have like a FOMO sometimes of like, once you get some good company that you keep, it'd be a real shame to lose them. I think with all these amazing advances in technology, we have the ability to just shout out somebody on their birthday or, especially me and you, we have a bunch of like sports interests in common, shouting out when their team does well, even for like a regular season game, just trying to make it so it's not some like random reach out. It's like, yeah, we haven't missed a beat, that was an incredible game or, happy birthday and all that. So just kind of having just like a positive people-pleasing mindset, trying to just stay warm and welcoming because You never know the kind of battles people are fighting. So I think when you have a good friendship, it's a real shame to lose it. I think technology makes it possible to keep it. And just, if you say in your mind, it doesn't matter if it's been 6 months, 6 years, 20 years for some of the people we're talking about, just act like you haven't missed a beat. And, it's weird how you can kind of turn back the clock and, rehash the good times with people and see what's going on now. So I kind of keep that mindset. And I brought that into this little college reunion we're going to do. We had a mini version of it for my wedding in July of 2024. And it was just so awesome seeing everyone. And, a big life event such as a wedding is a great reason, a great excuse to say, hey, you want to come to New York and, hang out for the first time in a long time. And I think a lot of people had a great time seeing each other at that. And to know that it's now been 20 years since our college floor got together, had the ups and the downs of living together in a co-ed dorm. I think there was a lot of appeal bringing the reunion back to Boston. We had a small scale attempt last year in New York, and, a few of my buddies, locally came out and we had a good time. But a lot of people had said, Connor, you can't tell us about this 3 weeks in advance. If we're going to travel there, we need months of planning. So, we got the word out kind of in the new year around January for a June, July summer-based reunion in Boston, where it all began for us. And I think a lot of people are very excited. Some people haven't been back since we graduated college. So there's an appeal. A lot of us have families now, have children, and it's just a really exciting opportunity for one summer weekend to try to make it work. So we are really, really excited about it. People seem excited. We're hoping to get a Red Sox game involved. We're hoping, have a little brewery visit, get some props and hops in there with some drinks and some family time, some good food. And we're really, really excited about it.
I can't wait for this as it continues to come together. And as part of your answer there, I caught you mentioning being a bit of a people pleaser when it comes to trying to keep a positive presence. I feel from firsthand experience that can be a double-edged sword, but you seem to straddle that line, again, as well as anybody I think I've ever come across. And it reminded me of a story that I heard come up recently when I was listening to an episode of the Modern Wisdom podcast with Morgan Housel, who's written a lot of great books about the psychology of money, the art of spending money, and so on. But he and the host were talking about an anecdote. I believe it was Jenny Jerome, who's more famous as Winston Churchill's mother, dining with British Prime Ministers William Gladstone and Benjamin Disraeli. And she had a quote kind of showing their personalities in different lights. I believe her quote is something to the effect of, when I left dining after sitting next to Mr. Gladstone, I thought he was the cleverest man in England. But when I sat next to Disraeli, I thought I was the cleverest woman in England. And I feel like you have that effect where anytime I've been around you, and if I'm talking to Allison or other mutual friends of ours, it's not always about knowing the perfect joke or being the alpha in the room, but just leaving everybody feeling better. We might not always remember exactly what was said or what the punchline was, but just that sense coming with any interaction with you, feeling like we're all better for it. It just seems like a fitting way to say that I hope being a people pleaser isn't too taxing too much of the time, but in terms of, making others get the right experience coming out of an interaction, that always gets the job done. And I only expect more of the same when it comes to this summer in Boston.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And listen, it's a two-way street as well. I think we were really blessed with the universe brought together. I think a group of people that just kind of had a lot of the same interests and just a lot of, they're a fun-loving bunch. And to know that we met when I was, we first moved in, I was 17 years old, and now looking back at 38. And just
I think it was your 18th birthday, if I recall. I think
the first day of
can
school.
roll the tape onto the show.
Yeah.
I think the first time we met on move-in day was, hey, I'm Matt. Nice to meet you, and happy birthday.
Yeah, September 3rd. Yeah,
September 3rd, 2005.
Often a first day of school for many. So just to look back and, it can often be a two-way street. And just, it was a really special group of people that we've thankfully been able to make lifelong friendships with. So to bring us all together in person, some of us bringing children, it's just hopefully the first of many chapters of lifelong friendship.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Connor, let's stick with the BU theme and hit the home stretch here with the hops. What's one beer you're most looking forward to drinking this summer in Boston?
I'm thinking it's not particularly a Boston beer, but when I think summertime, I like to get a little fruit involved with my beer. And I remember really getting on it last summer. I think it's 21st Amendment Brewery. It's Hell or High Watermelon. And the name is awesome, number one, and the taste is even better. So like when I think of those summer beers, just kind of getting some fruit extracts involved. So that, along with, my wife and I, Jackie, our favorite place on earth is Hershey Park. And every time we go there, it's right next door to the Trogs Brewery, which is absolutely fantastic. If you have not been, please, please, please. The food is incredible. The people there are amazing. And my wife loves the Sunshine. I like the Graffiti Highway. The Trogs beers, you can't miss with them. They are fantastic.
And if you like Trogs and you've been talking about, I know more of a summer vibe, adding some fruit to the experience with your beer, more of a winter holiday seasonal release that Trogs does every year is called Mad Elf, which has some tart cherries and some chocolate malt, I believe. So a bit more decadent than Hell or High Watermelon. But does Mad Elf by Trogs ring a bell by any chance?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's on the higher APV as well. So you can get a sixer of those and be like, okay,
we are 11%.
Yeah, that's right. So yes, and it's funny you say that because we do like Christmas in Hershey as well at the park, which we can't wait to bring our daughter to one of these years. One of the things we're really looking forward to. So yeah, the Mad Elf is a favorite among us as well for the winter.
Nice. Yeah, I love getting a Trogs Mad Elf reference on the show when we can, because I believe either the first or second time I had a really sharp, really friendly mind in the space who goes by Captain Jack Andrews on the show. I believe he talked about Mad Elf. And Jack is the kind of guy who a lot of people would consider the unofficial commissioner of sports betting, just the role he plays in the space, being so smart, being so plugged in with so many people. So love using beer as a way to get everything connected, along with all things sports betting. And Connor, if there's one beer I'd love to connect over with you and so many of our other friends from BU, I'm going to put Julius at the top of my list. This is a New England IPA by Treehouse Brewing Company out of Charlton, Massachusetts, about an hour southwest of Fenway Park, if my geography is correct. And Treehouse is an absolute powerhouse. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with the New England IPA phrasing for the style here. What some people call the New England IPA, I'll often call a hazy IPA. Since out here on the West Coast, I'm privy to some of the best producers of the style outside of New England. I'm thinking Monkish in Highland Park in LA, Green Cheek in Orange County, North Park in San Diego. But tomato, the bottom line, Julius is a bucket list beer of mine. I've had it in cans before, and I recall getting notes of stone fruit and citrus to the max with a soft, creamy body, and just a touch of bitterness to remind you it is still a beer at the end of the day. I keep thinking back to the first time I tasted it. I was just getting to craft beer, and it blew my mind so much. I might have well have seen a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And I feel like just like a real life sighting of Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, or Michelangelo, a chance to taste Julius on draft, fresh from the source, seems almost too good to be true. My last note here is that if I'm most looking forward to Julius, I do bet the one beer I'll remember the most fondly from this reunion is the first one with all of us together, whatever that happens to be. Time and place, as Dave Molinsky would often say, can often outweigh everything else, including what's in the glass when we're talking beer. It could be something like Steel Reserve for all I care. I just know that this is going to be one of those times and one of those places that's going to go down in the memory book.
Oh, it's going to be great. Yeah, it's going to be surreal, I think. Once upon a time we'd be talking about at 18 years old how we can get beer, and now to know that we're connoisseurs and we're talking about the all the intricacies of it. Life happens fast, but I absolutely can't wait.
And I'll let you get back to your life happening very fast before your eyes right now with a daughter who is 1 month old as of today. Connor, I appreciate your dedication to this as one of my favorite annual traditions. Hopefully the looming lockout doesn't delay the proceedings too much come 2027, but we've got plenty to look forward to in the meantime. Thank you for making this such a joy, as always.
Thank you, Matt. It's always such a pleasure. This is such a highlight for me. Thank you so much for having me.
And to the audience, thanks as always for tuning in. Enjoy what's left of the World Baseball Classic, and then hot on its heels, opening day across Major League Baseball.